Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode here of What's Spinnin' at 45 Drives. Today, we are joined by a friend in the industry, Lester Nichols. He is a cybersecurity expert who's done all kinds of awesome things. Currently employed at JP Morgan Chase. Wrote a wonderful book on cybersecurity, which I haven't read yet, but a coworker of mine here said it changed the whole view of how he sees things, and we'll talk about that today. But Lester, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
No, definitely. Glad to be here.
Yeah. We'll get into all kinds of fun stuff, but I want to talk about, because I know you got one of our new professional 15 units, and I want to get into that a little bit. But first, we want to talk about you and your story. And I'll be honest too. Anyone cybersecurity expert, I respect. Like it's a tough, scary industry, and you get to see a lot of cool stuff. And so we'll dive into that. So first thing I want to start with is a little bit of your origin story. What got you into this world? And particular, were you always interested in cybersecurity, or did you kind of fall into that? Take us through the beginning.
Yeah, I was actually going to school to be a physician.
Oh, interesting.
So completely,
Yeah.
180. And while I was working summer jobs and in between, I worked in the insurance industry and worked in oncology and worked on government granted research programs and gross anatomy, cadavers, all that kind of stuff. But as I started to see the medical industry change, because I grew up with my grandfather telling me the stories of how he was a physician.
Yeah.
I realized that you could no longer really be a doctor. It became a business first. So It was removing the patient-doctor relationship from the mix. And, my grandfather talked about how he treated families. So when somebody was sick, he knew kind of where everything was coming from and how to talk to the different patients and that type of stuff. So I realized that medicine, even though I enjoyed it, wasn't necessarily going to be something that I wanted to stay in long term. And so I kind of switched over to computers. And what got me going on that is I was working for a medical group, and an anesthesiologist reached out to me to say, hey, can you take a look at something? And he wanted me to basically correlate all of his billing information, because he said that there were discrepancies.
Okay.
And he gave me basically his bills and then the checking information about what was deposited. And I created a Microsoft Access program, and did everything. And come to find out, it turned out that his biller, because they shared a mailbox, was actually embezzling from him.
No way.
Yeah. So I, between doing that and kind of digging into it and being able to see and basically solve the puzzle that was given to me, got me interested in it. And he paid me, and that money went into my first computer that I actually bought myself, and that was an Intel Core Duo with a whopping 64 megs of RAM, a drive. It was high tech for the time, but now, you think about it, your phone has more resource and power than what my computer had. So
yeah, well, we're spoiled with all that extra resources now, which actually anyway, we're spoiled. Everyone just brings in all the libraries, and then no one's as efficient with their programming and everything as they used to be, because there is so much room, which also probably causes a bunch of security concerns too, because you just randomly bring in libraries that you might not need. And oh yeah, it's a whole new world.
And with that computer, I had installed Windows 98 that was always crashing, and finally got a copy of from Best Buy, a copy of Red Hat, and I installed that and started messing with Red Hat early on, and then got a copy of the Solaris that I messed with, an early copy of Solaris that would run on an Intel architecture. So it was stuff like that really got me interested after kind of transitioning into looking towards an IT-based career.
Gotcha. So that's an interesting jump. So physician to insurance fraud analyst to cybersecurity. So now IT and stuff. What kind of drove you into the cybersecurity? Because you've built yourself into quite the expert and leader of thought in this world. And like I said, the book, which we'll talk about, is a great piece of writing. What brought you into the security world?
Well, my first IT type job was working for a nonprofit, and the nonprofit was wanting to basically upgrade their website. So it drove me learning how to basically build a website and help design it. And then I moved on to a financial institution and started out doing projects and moved on to being their DBA and eventually a network engineer. And I realized that during this period of time, security from a financial piece or industry perspective was really beginning to get noticed. I mean, this is when you had GLBA and SOX kind of getting pushed through, and then other rules about data leaks and that type of stuff and impacts. And so that's really what kind of made me want to focus in. And so I went back to school and got a master's in information assurance from Norwich University. And that really, making that decision really kind of spurred on my desire to do security, because I think of security as problem solving, but also puzzle solving.
Oh yeah.
And my focus for my master's was in forensics or digital investigations. So it really gave me kind of a taste of that itch that I liked. So
well, yeah, your first foray was investigating that embezzlement. So of course, yeah. That's awesome. I like the puzzle. You've said that a couple times too, and that's always what I've loved about this world too. Someone gives you the challenge, and you're like, "Ooh, how am I going to solve this?" It's fun. So a particular puzzle that I think we always run into is, there's security, and then there's humans. Like, right. Computers and humans, they both got their challenges, but I don't know which one's harder. But how do you balance the need for like really robust security rules and compliance and procedures, but by still allowing everything to be accessible enough that you don't have to like log in 6 times just to like check an email or something like that?
Yeah, it really comes down to business risk, and security is nothing more than risk acceptance, right?
Yep,
you go home, you drive a car, and there's dangers all around you. Just opening your door, you could potentially slip on ice and fall and, break your back. You can get in an accident. But we all accept certain levels of risk, and we mitigate that risk through different things, whether it's homeowners insurance, whether it's car insurance, whether it's locks on the door, security systems. It's all about mitigating that risk and understanding what we're willing to accept from a risk perspective, and making it as difficult as possible to for the threat actor to do bad things. Because at the end of the day, you can't stop a determined opponent, because they're going to keep coming. The only thing that you can do is make their life so miserable that eventually they're going to want to stop.
Yeah. It's not worth the effort putting in.
Right.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, because I find people fall down that trap of being too light on security, and then oh geez, something bad happened. Okay, locking every door, blah blah blah, and then the kind of overhead of dealing with that kills the workflow and productivity, and then you kind of oscillate back and forth. So I like your approach to everything where like that. Like the first thing is, no, I'm not going to solve it technically. We're going to think about the philosophy of what allowances we can make. So I like that. That's cool.
And it's really, as you described, it's a pendulum shift that goes from one end to the other, and that just wears people out. When I was working for the government, part of my job was to basically bridge operations and security, because when you're dealing with operations, your DBAs, your network engineers, your various teams, and then you've got your security team. There's that love-hate relationship where everybody's kind of vying or pole positioning to see who's going to smack each other down. And my idea is that security is meant to enable operations as much as possible, but doing it in the best and most efficient, secure way as possible. But a lot of times, security is always bolted on after the fact, and that's where you run into those issues. The idea is to get it ingested at the beginning, at the design phase, so that you can more effectively understand what roadblocks you may have to work around when you have a security system, because there are security effects on operations that can limit you or prevent you from doing certain things. And the idea is understanding the way to approach it so it best meets the goal and the business objectives of an organization.
I love it. Yeah, and I think you nailed. I really like the way you said that. And there's a parallel to like a quality systems we have here. It's the don't tack it in at the end or just like, oh, the security team will handle that. No, you got to really bake in that philosophy of it's almost everyone's role a little bit to contribute. Yeah, there's a security team because they own it and everything like that. But that doesn't mean you don't have to worry about it. Like you should really bring in, because we hear like from our manufacturing side of things, we look at, there's a direct analogous line there to the way we treat quality. Like, oh, just kick it off to QA, they'll figure out what's wrong. No, if we really embed that way of thinking into how we all work, it's not as jarring. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, not to pick on Microsoft, but I think people have gotten too used to being the beta testers for, their operating system and their stuff, and they're used to those types of issues when they don't need to do that. I mean, that's one of the reasons why it drove me to open source and just completely doing away with Microsoft altogether on all of my systems. I mean, the only reason I run Windows in a VM is just for testing purposes. Yep. Otherwise, everything is pure Linux. And my wife, I've got her on Mac. It took her a while to get off of Windows. So, she'll probably stay on Mac for a little while. But even that, I try to transition to a true, Linux-only approach.
Cool. Well, I'll hop in right there. So what's your Linux distro of choice then? Are you still the RHEL family?
So right now I've got Pop OS.
Nice.
I run System 76 laptops at home, and then I've got a System 76 workstation that I just got to review. So and I've liked System 76 and Pop OS, and they kind of have the same design philosophy and approach that you guys do. Before that, I was running Arch, and everybody has to run Arch for a while to show some cred.
Yep, exactly.
I switched from Arch when the whole grub issue happened, because I was that 0.1% that totally forked, and I had to rebuild, and I got tired of that. So since I was running Pop on my laptops, I just switched everything to Pop. And then for my servers and stuff, I typically run Debian 12.
Nice.
Unless there's stuff that I need to run specifically because the build requires like Ubuntu or something like that. So like Graylog, which I'm using the Graylog Open as my SIM, and I've built stuff out for my home SIM to capture and monitor and see everything. All of that I'm running Ubuntu, but otherwise I try to use Debian. I was using CentOS, but then that went away.
Yeah.
So I haven't gone to Rocky yet, but with the Pro 15, I'm looking to mess with that from a Rocky perspective and Houston perspective. So
nice. Yeah, I'll be excited to hear what you have to say there. But yeah, we were. I still remember the day when CentOS, when they announced that was going away, and then. But yeah, Rocky, we've been contributing to that project since they started up, and they've their foundation and the people running that have done a good job to keep themselves alive should anyone try to pull the plug on them again. So anyway, it's just good to have the options out there.
Oh no, I completely agree, and that's the one thing I like about open source and Linux specifically is that you have options, and you're not beholden to somebody's whim direction on things. So
yeah, which is exactly, and that's the best part of Linux and open source is how flexible it is. But you do need to know like how to bend it the right way. Like it's why we all do Arch the first time, right? Like same thing. Yeah. I had the same story that you just said, where I was like, yeah, this is awesome in the command line. Build my MD80 RAM to put my boot on, and all of a sudden it took me a whole day, and then I don't know, a rolling update broke something. That was fun maybe twice, and then I was like, no, I'm not doing this again.
Yep.
Yeah. So
that was the same thing I thought of. It was always a big throwdown to say, yeah, I'm running Arch, but then when it comes down to it, it's like, okay, yeah, this is getting old, having to rebuild something because either the AUR broke something or some other upstream distro repository got pushed down when it shouldn't have, and so.
Mm-hmm. However, it was a great place to start because it teaches you so much too. Like I know so much more about Linux and fixing stuff like that by just running it. But yeah, when it's your daily driver for work and you got to go in to do something, you have to fix while you're boot. It's
like, and 99.9% of my workflow I can accomplish in a Linux based tool set.
Nice.
I mean, even from a video perspective, I've got DaVinci Resolve running on Pop! OS with no problem, and it runs great.
Yeah, no, it's nice to see. There's a lot of Linux apps now are getting good enough to use. The only thing that's kind of like, even internally at our company here, the only thing holding back everyone from kind of switching over is CAD, like SolidWorks CAD. There's nothing quite good enough in Linux yet to do that, but eventually, maybe. So we'll move on here. Your current role at JP Morgan. So we won't dive too deep into this, but like that's a fun financial one. You get to solve all those problems. How long have you been there?
So I have been there for going on 4 years now.
Nice.
And I'm essentially the security architect for one of the director and lead security architect for one of the divisions in Chase. So I'm not really on the financial side. I'm more on the Chase travel. But it's interesting. You get to see a lot of things and work with a bunch of great people. So
that's awesome. Anyway, I'm sure they have all kinds of rules on what you can say and not say. So we won't go any further than that. But what were you doing? Well, actually, we'll go backwards then. What were you doing before you joined JP?
I was working for a company that wrote software and developed hardware. Basically, they had asset tracking system, and you could either use your own Bluetooth or RFID devices, or they built their own. And they got to the point where we were able to do 20-plus mile line of sight Bluetooth tracking.
Wow.
On devices. And that's on, it all had to do with the antenna and the Bluetooth module. But we could track things up to 20 miles line of sight.
That's impressive. That's
just Bluetooth.
Nice. All right. Moving on to one of our favorite segments, our war story segment. Everyone in this world has gone into a problem where it's that stuff they don't teach you in school. It's that real grizzled experience where you go in on one side and you come out a changed person on the other. Especially from your point of view as cybersecurity, I'm sure you've seen some things. So from what you can share with us, can you share just a war story, something that you just wouldn't have experienced if you just didn't get out there and battle through a problem?
Yeah, it was a good one. This is kind of early on in my career when I was working for a bank in California. This is when audits and actual security control checks were starting to pick up. We were about ready to get audited, and they gave us kind of a what you would call probably a rules of engagement document. And I was reading it, and it was going to be about a month away. And so I was reading it, and I realized that there was a gap in our, this was when I was a network engineer, there was a gap in kind of our monitoring and things that they were going to check. This is when McAfee was still just a AV
Yeah.
tool, and there wasn't EPO yet. So one of the things that they were looking at is how we're monitoring or checking uh, our signatures and our engine updates and making sure clients are up to date, that type of stuff. And this bank was a large bank. They had 13 locations across Southern California that you could easily travel 100 miles, going from one location to another location and back again without an issue. So it was definitely time consuming to go to every branch and that type of stuff. So what I did is I started trying to troubleshoot and problem solve the situation. And what I came up with is, well, we're running Windows NT for our domain controllers. We've got logon scripts. How about I just write a batch file and a script that's going to read the engine information, so the version and the version of the signature set, and then update a SQL database. So I did that, started pushing that out, and this is all without necessarily official approval. I was calling it kind of the Black Ops project.
Yeah.
And then rather than having to go and write queries every time to pull data, I basically wrote an ASP page that then would just update and present the most current information for the ones that were out of date at the top of a page, and then you could print that out to show that everything is being updated, and it would have a date, time when it was updated, because that's all stuff that's a part of the file properties. So I could pull all that information. So I modified the batch file and created the website, and then started printing stuff out. And when they came to audit, they asked the question, how are you checking stuff? And they're going, well, we go to each machine, and I kind of raised my hand, and I had the notebook with everything, and I said, well, here's this, and it had everything in it. And so it was kind of a quick win.
Nice.
For the bank, but it was because it was a Black Ops thing. Kind of got in trouble, because it was something that nobody had officially sanctioned. So you have to. I thought I was balancing doing the right thing versus getting approvals, and those are things that you have to balance from any type of job perspective. But
that's a good one. Yeah. I like that. Yeah, they're like, oh, good work, but don't do that again. Yeah.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, man, that's a good one. Thank you for sharing. Why'd you do a Black Ops? Were you concerned they were going to tell you, no, don't do that? Like,
I it wasn't that I was concerned that they were going to say, no, don't do that, as much as it was that they thought it was a waste of time.
Yep.
They didn't think that it could get done, or there wasn't a reasonable reason to do it. And again, this goes back to me trying to solve the puzzle of seeing how they wrote the audit playbook or the rules of engagement and what they were going to be looking at. Made me think, all right, we're kind of doing this, but let's automate this, and let's kind of move this further. And then 4 or 5 years later, EPO comes out and kind of does the same thing and has the centralized management. So
gotcha. Yeah, classic. Well, thank you. That was a good story. I want to move on now and talk about writing books, which is always a fun challenge in itself. So I want to start with, I have a copy of the book sitting on my desk. I have not read it yet because, well, I just got it yesterday, and it's a thick one. But our director of security here, Brandon, he went through it all, and he was raving about it. And what he loved the most about it was that he goes, it really changed my way of thinking about how all this, like how the architecture and philosophy works, which sounds like which was the main purpose of the book and stuff. So take us through the experience. What first of all, was that the first book you wrote, or just the most recent one?
So that's the first individual book I've written. I've been a contributing author to the Wiley Press 5th and 6th editions, Chapter 38 for the Computer Security Handbook. And that was about writing secure code.
Oh, okay.
So
Nice.
that was, again, another kind of freak thing where during my master's program, our doctoral main professor was the one that was the editor, and he had some people that kind of flaked out, and this was kind of a last minute thing. Hey, can you take over this? And I said sure, and it got me to be able to do 2 editions. So, and that book is specifically used in upper division college courses
Nice.
today. So.
So it wasn't your first dive, but it was your first dive in writing your own singular book. So,
Right.
How was that process? Like,
It was interesting. Basically, I approached Packet Publishing, who's the publisher of the book, and I've been reviewing their books for a while. I'll get books and write reviews or read them and say, hey, this type of thing needs to be fixed or should be updated, that type of stuff. I've been doing that for a while. So I went to them and broached the idea, and they had a few recommendations, and I thought about it and then took their recommendations and what my idea was, and then went forward with it to write the outline and basically present an official proposal. And with the proposal, they said, okay, that sounds good. Now, they'll send a contract, do all that type of thing. And then they start scheduling basically deadlines. So I was having to write a chapter every 2 weeks or so.
Yeah.
I started the book after I got everything approved. I started the book in July of 23. And I kind of pushed myself to kind of be ahead of schedule. And I got the book completed, at least my first draft of all the chapters completed by October. And then the rest of the time between October and January was going back and forth with the editor to make edits and update screenshots and that type of stuff. And it was actually going to be a much larger book. Chapter 9 is kind of the lab section or the doing section of the book. And that ended up being close to 500 pages all on its own with all the screenshots and the lab stuff. And when I shipped it to them, the publisher and the editor kind of had a heart attack and said, no, we can't do that, because they start working on the printing and publication piece well before the book is actually finished. And so they work up pricing models and that type of stuff. And the pricing model for what my initial estimate would have been like way below what it would have cost to print out, an additional 500 pages. So what they did is they took the different projects and different things out of it and created a PDF so that you could download it. So there's a 500 page PDF that you can download.
Nice. And that's the lab hands-on kind of portion of it.
Yeah.
So, rewarding experience. Did you enjoy doing it?
Oh, I definitely enjoyed it. I wrote it for 2 reasons. One, my family's always asking me what I do, and
Here.
and yeah, as well as the fact that I get asked by a lot of people, not only in IT or people looking to change careers or kind of move up, how can I do what you do? And so I wrote it trying to meet that entire audience, the people that don't know security to the people that know IT and or a little bit of security but want to expand even further. And so the first 3 chapters are really setting a foundational understanding. And then from there, start going into, from a career perspective, different things that you may have to work with. And because I wanted to make it accessible to everybody, all of the tooling and all of the different projects and the software platforms and everything are all open source.
Nice.
That way, my viewpoint is with the book is this is meant to help you learn how to fish and the concepts for fishing.
Yep.
Now, if you're going to be fishing on a lake, a stream, or deep ocean, you can take those concepts and apply them based off of the environment that you're in. And so that's the other big thing that I think with security and technology itself is every application has different UIs, has different ways of approaching stuff, but the general concepts are pretty much the same. And you can, as long as you understand the concept and can work with the concept, then being able to adapt is relatively easy.
Nice. I love that approach because we even see it too, just in hiring and bringing new people in, and they're just like those who did. Schools around here are just starting to catch up and change their labs to include either that or Linux or everything. But usually they come out and they're like, yeah, I just know Windows, and you're like, no, like let's go down a layer and understand what you're doing so we can apply it to everything. And then it's like almost like being able to read the matrix code at that point. Like I can do anything. Yeah.
Yep. And that's the other thing that I did is I tried to apply my personal experience to stuff so that people, regardless of where they're at, can realize that anybody can do this. I mean, if I can do it, anybody can do it.
Yeah.
And then I also, security, a lot of the terminology, a lot of the concepts are all based off of military concepts.
Okay. Yeah.
With security. So I used Sun Tzu. I used quotes, and then start applying and adapting the quotes from Sun Tzu to basically lead into the topic of discussion.
No way. That's cool. Yeah, because Sun Tzu, is it The Art of War? Is that the book?
Yep, The Art of War.
Yes,
yep.
The Art of Cyber War, and you can write that version. That's awesome. Cool.
Yeah.
What was I going to say? Anyway, okay. Another one? You going to write any more?
Yeah, I'm actually working on basically another book that's meant to adapt lab environments for people that are wanting to set up home labs and kind of where to start, because a lot of people want to do it, but they don't know where to go or what to do. And also enterprise level labs. I've found that a lot of times in different sized organizations, they don't necessarily have a non-prod or a lab environment to properly test stuff. And that creates a ton of problems, not only from a security side of the house, but also operations.
Yep.
So this book is going to basically try to set a framework and a best practice on how you approach stuff, how you size your environment, because you don't necessarily have to have a one-for-one across your prod environment and your non-prod environment or lab environment. And you're definitely not going to have a huge thing for your home lab, but you can adapt and build stuff out and basically have different technologies and different things to move forward. And because I'm kind of security oriented, there's going to be a lot on how to set up security labs and approaching different things, but also from an operational perspective and doing, CI/CD pipelines and infrastructure as code using either Terraform or Ansible.
Yep.
And just basically kind of making this book an offshoot of the previous one.
Cool. I'm looking forward to that one. That's cool. I like that. I like your style that way too. First, you said it before of trying to write it simple, and I use the word simple in quotes because writing a simple summary of something complicated is the hardest thing to do in the world. And it's so easy, and particularly in security, and particularly in network engineering, all the acronyms and terms and black magic words that come out of it, when you break it down into the principles, it allows more people to come in and join. So love your take on that, because I find those two industries are kind of the scariest of like, whoa, I don't even know what language they're speaking.
Oh yeah, I mean, at like network engineering, I kind of started there at the as before I got into security, and I was doing a bunch of stuff, Cisco and working with ESX version 1, and just the stuff that kind of is where you earn your chops, and that in itself made me want to the frustration around that made me want to kind of go into security too, just because of that. So
nice. Yeah, well, we appreciate it, and we appreciate people who we like to try to do that too. Try to demystify as much as possible, because you can just rhyme off acronyms as much as you want, but When it feels good when you explain something to someone and you don't get that kind of blank nod where they go, "Oh, I gotcha." Like it's a really satisfying feeling.
Oh yeah, and the other hard thing is the fact that you can have the same acronym, but it mean different things in different industries.
Yeah.
And then you move from one industry to another, and people get totally confused, and it's just problematic. So I always like to get detailed, but I also like to bring the understanding level so it's a little bit more simple and relatable, regardless of who you're talking to.
Yeah. Start general and dive into the weeds when you need to. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
All right. Well, moving on. You've got. I think you got your server from us delivered today, maybe. Or was
Yeah.
that- yeah.
It arrived today. I pulled it out of the box. Then I do have to. I told this to Ashley. You see the quality in the videos, but until you have it in hand, it pales in comparison to actually seeing the quality in hand. I mean, the cabling and just the how you packed it, and just the fact that you've got a sheet of metal in the back that says this is purely for protection, and it's carved out, etched out. I mean, that's a cool factor all on its own.
Nice.
But just seeing the quality and how everything is set up and how everything is tight and ready to go was just beyond compare.
Awesome.
I mean, so far from any system I've ever worked with, whether it's Dell, whether it's IBM, and whether it's even not the harp on System 76, but even their stuff, yours was definitely it's built like a tank, and you can see the care and precision in it.
Wow. Thank you. Well, I'm glad that was the experience because that's what we try to do, and that's one of our kind of unique offerings of like we own the whole like manufacturing. Like, we don't offshoot that to another company. Well, we kind of do. It's called Protocase, but we are the same
Right.
entity. 45 Drives and Protocase is the same. Protocase is our manufacturing arm, and then we're the service engineering software,
Right.
sales all on top of that. So,
And you can see that in the design. You can see that the design that you guys provide is being mapped and worked into the actual case.
yeah, nice. Well, good. I'm glad that was your experience. Yeah, and they are rock solid. In particular, we built one. It's a little just system on a chip, thin client, if you will. But it's a nice milled case, and it can go into rugged environments and everything like that. But we did a little stunt with it. We literally drove over it with a truck as we were using it. So yeah, not quite a tank, but pretty close.
Yeah, no, I mean, I totally appreciate that.
Yeah.
I mean, and my rack that I have back here, I try to water cool everything and everything else, and seeing the Noctua fans and everything in there, and even though it's air cooled from a processor perspective, I expect thermals to be totally great. So
Yeah, you're in good shape there. And that's the beautiful part of we treat our hardware much like we try to treat the open source software. Those are just regular old screws. You're welcome to change things and do whatever you want because that's the whole point of the home lab. Some people like to tinker and change, but like you said, you're going to be in good shape there, but we encourage everyone to bend it as they see fit as well too. So
oh yeah, and I appreciate the tactile power button.
nice.
It's not just something that feels flimsy. You've got that nice click and feel to it, and then the just the captive screws in the front. Definitely an appreciated component. So yeah, no, I'm looking forward to getting it in the rack. And
Have you loaded any drives into it yet?
No, I've got some 12 terabyte drives that I'm going to put in, and then I'm going to test it with some SSDs as well.
Nice. Yeah, because I believe we sent you some caddies as well too.
Yeah, yeah, and I appreciate that as well. So it makes that a little bit easier.
Yeah.
And then I did add a SFP 25 card in there because I don't route my my data plane So I'm going to put that so I can have high speed uh, data backplane for like NSF and or NFS
Okay.
and stuff for that, and then use the 10 gig for the main front end and the Samba type shares.
Nice. That'll be fun. Yeah, and the reason I bring up the drives too, well, short of you'll have to use caddies for the SSDs just to fit the bay, but there's one other thing that we really hate to do is screw hard drives into caddies all the time. So like we've got the
Yeah,
caddy-less design where you can just slip it right in. And for the 15, it's one thing, but you go and do our bigger, denser products, the XL60s and stuff. And remember we went and did one big install for a customer, and it literally took us, I think, like 7 hours to load 960 hard drives into everything, and that was
yeah,
without
yeah,
caddies.
yeah. And having worked with SANs and other stuff, it's no fun doing that. Having something that's toolless and being able to slip in and pull out, and uh, the HBA card. I mean, everything looks, just from, again, first unboxing impressions, it is, a 4-star, multi chevron experience.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad you've enjoyed that so far. So can't wait to hear what more you do with it. All right. Well, with that, I think we'll move into our close here. I want to thank you again for joining us.
I know, I appreciate
This
it.
was great, and I want to encourage everyone listening to go check out the book, the Cybersecurity Architect's Handbook. And like Lester said, it is written in a way that's kind of digestible to all. And a big shining shout out from my colleague here, who like his main takeaway was it changed the way I looked at things. And so I'm looking forward to diving into it as well. Where can people get that book right now?
They can go to Packet's website,
Okay.
packet.com, or you can get it on Amazon, and it comes in hardback or physical or Kindle.
Cool. And the PDF, the big old PDF document with all the lab stuff through Packet as well.
Yeah, there's a GitHub link in there.
Oh, wonderful.
That is there, and then also what's referenced in there is my GitHub, because all of like the Graylog exporter or importers and parsers and everything I have on my GitHub page, as well as kind of recommended reading and other stuff if people are wanting to kind of expand what they want to do. So
Perfect. And let everyone know where can they find you on social.
I really don't. Being security, I don't do a lot of social media, but I am on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Lester Nichols on LinkedIn, and then I am on X. So my handle there is at SecDoc,
Okay.
and I do have a web page where I publish stuff and do reviews and that type of stuff, and that is secdoc.tech.
Perfect. All right. Well, thanks, Lester, for joining us and sharing everything, the war stories, and all the insight on everything. So with that, we'll sign off.
All right, glad to be here.